Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very long time. Well, it's been a very long winter. Not as brutal as I expected. It got to minus 20, which, we're pretty much used to. This morning is minus 7, and it's almost April. But last week we had a heat wave. This winter was one of reflection, wondering on the future. A lot of things are happening around the world, and both the intensity of the activities and the regularity of the activities is increasing to the point where we're being bombarded daily with new events, new catastrophes, new crises. And what this is leading to is fear, confusion among the population, but something much more terrifying, and that's the lack of belief in a future. And we are noticing it with our friends and the people we come into contact with. There's no belief in a future. No one wants to make any plans. If you think back to when you were young, you generally had an idea of where you wanted your life to go, what you expected to achieve, places you expected to visit, material goods you expected to buy. And now, tell me what your 5-year, 10-year plan is. Where do you really see yourself in 5-10 years? The world is changing so rapidly, and this deliberate destruction of Western society by our favourite 3-lettered cabal, or whoever they represent. What about the future? Everything is focused on the present, whether it's protests in Paris, whether it's bird flu or digital currencies or wars in neighbouring countries, nuclear Armageddon, mass immigration. None of this is really talking about the future. What this is just hammering and hammering and hammering us normal people into a state of confusion. Our traditional beliefs have been wiped out in the space of a couple of years. It staggers me, large companies and governments who flipped the terms and requirements, the internal regulations to fit this woke agenda. How quickly? And it was universal. The same goes for this ESG mandate, the environmental social governance. How quickly companies and governments change to this. But we only have to look at who are in a position of power in these large companies and governments. Young, well leaders. It's got to the stage where I'm really surprised no one is identifying the fact that most Western societies, we basically now have Vichy governments. These governments have no interest in their people's interests. This is what they dismiss as right-wing populism, and instead focus on implementing mandates from a certain Swiss gentleman and his friends. As the German foreign minister said, and I paraphrase, "I don't care what the voters want. This is what I'm going to do," as Emmanuel Macron has just done within the last week. this is what you're going to get, whether you like it or not. Now, don't think that protests are actually going to help you. They knew there would be civil disturbance. They knew there would be protests. So what they did is they factored this in to whatever their end goal was. Unless a protest is massively successful and achieves its aims, all it does is allows the people in positions of power to use that against the people. They can bring in harsher laws to protect the country against these rioters or malcontents. Similar to the Patriot Act. They could just keep layering this and layering this. So unless the Dutch protests, the Paris protests, the Brussels protests, unless these really succeed in achieving what they set out to do, it will just end up where the people suffer even greater, because the laws will become, and the reaction will become more draconian. So let's look at the future. I don't think the general population will awaken to what is going on, at least before it's too late. So now, I would really suggest you focus on yourselves, your family, and people around you. But importantly, focus on a future. Really, really set yourself a goal in the future. It's very easy to get confused and dismayed and lose sight and start running around like a headless chicken, because that's what they want. You still have to give yourself a goal. Now, in several previous videos, I've told you to make a bucket list and focus your will and intent on doing this. And I still recommend this. Really important is that you know you have a future. But this time I'm going to suggest having an A plan and a B plan, especially if you live in an urban area. It really is time to start considering, because of what's going on in the world, are you in a position to be able to quickly move somewhere else? Maybe just for a short period, just in case. Start thinking about that. I don't think the population at large of Western civilization is really going to get what's going on until it's too late. And then you're going to have panic buying, you're going to have bank runs. Make sure you pre-guess this. Have a look for alternative places to live, to move, alternative ways of storing your financing. Don't just squirrel down. That might not be the best idea. The more flexible and nomadic you can be, the greater your chance of survival. Anyway, as always, be free.